Hi, my name is Amy. Thank you very much for watching, and let's make some bad financial decisions together. This is for entertainment purposes only, so if you're entertained, please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. So, this morning, I decided that I was going to take my dogs out for a morning walk because, Amelia has had a little bit of potty regression, and I would really love for her to go outside to go to the bathroom. So we did that, and then the other two dogs that live on the other side of the house got jealous. So I was trying to get Pi to go outside with me, but it's been raining all night, and he was like, the ground is wet. I hate everything. I'm not coming off the porch. But then I heard a tiny little meow, and I was like, that does not sound like any of my cats. And so I walked down the porch and I was staring at the overgrown grass, and I was like, please don't let it be kittens. Please don't let it be kittens. And then I saw a pair of green eyes under my house. And that is, in fact, one of my cats. So she just sounded smaller because she was behind a bunch of concrete. So on the other side of the house, I do have a cubby hole thing that there's an official term for that. Basically, it's a access hatch to get underneath my house. But first, I wanted to finish walking my dogs. And since Pi did not want to go for a walk, I asked Ada if she wanted to go for a walk. And she did want to go for a walk, but she didn't want to come back because I didn't want it to be a long walk because the other ones didn't go for a long walk. And I have to go to the grocery store. I have everything I need to do today. So we were on our way back, and she parked the brakes, and I was trying to control her to get into the house, but then her collar broke, and she went running down our very, very steep hill. So I had to go in the house and get my car keys, and by the time I got my car keys and the treat bag I usually wear, and I started pulling out of my yard, she'd run back up to the house. And because I'm training my dogs that if they escape, they go onto car rides because they're Pyrenees, so if they're not known for wanting to come back, but if they know that when they come back they go on car rides, I'm hoping we just train each other that they go and they come back and it's not that big of a deal. So we went for a car ride. And then, and because her collar is broken, when I go to Walmart today, I'm going to pick her up another choke collar, not the kind with prongs or anything. And she doesn't really need it because they're really well trained with loose leash walking. But if she ever doesn't want to go anywhere ever again, it's just like a slip lead. So that's what that's for. Anyways, I got back finally, and I opened up the access hatch, and Morgana was right there. But it took me like 3 tries to get her because the first time I took her out and I put her on the ground so I could put the hatch back on. And of course, neither of my other 2 dogs would go in the house and let me lock them in the house. So she was like, wow, there's huge dogs here. I'm just going to go back in the cubby hole. And I was like, no, I need you to not be under the house. And so finally I put her back inside, and I got the access hatch closed. And when I'm done with this, I will be going to the grocery store. Anyways, what I actually want to talk to you today about is credit cards. So I think where a lot of people get into trouble with credit cards is at first they don't realize it's not free money. It's leveraged money. And you should not be spending more than's in your bank account, because as soon as you get a credit card, as soon as you activate it, it should go onto auto pay, and you should set it to pay the statement in full. And that way you never have to worry about it. It's just always getting paid at the amount that it needs to get paid for you not to get that ridiculous APR attached to it. So growing up, my dad was very, very anti auto pay, but as I've grown up and I'm not paying, like, I would rather it just be on auto pay, and that way if I forget to pay or whatever, I'm not getting penalized. So auto pay is optional, but I think that for a lot of people, you will do much better with auto pay on. And so there are more advanced use cases. And I think, well, I also learned about credit card turning when I was getting my master's degree, and I had enough money for my college tuition, but I used credit cards because the charge for using a credit card was less than the rewards that I got from the credit cards if I spent an amount of money in a period of time. So every semester, I would open up credit cards, spend enough to get the bonus, and then pay that off with the money I had in the bank. However, eventually the university changed how much they charged, so it wound up not being worth doing that little churning trick. And honestly, credit card churning gets really complicated with the more cards that you have. It's easier to mess up timing and just getting all that going. But I have, because now I do not have an emergency fund, opened up several 0% interest credit cards because, and by the way, the 0% interest for however many months is a little bit of a trap. And the reason why I opened it up was because I was applying for a short sale. I was only allowed to have less than $10,000 in liquid assets. And I needed to show that I was having a hard time paying my mortgage for my condo, which I was, but, just amplifying my spending a little bit more. That, like, when you do those 0% interest, you should figure out how much you have in total, divide it by the number of months, minus 1 or 2, like pay it off a month or 2 early, and then pay in even amounts above the minimum that you can. That is the best way to go about these 0% because they are not free money. You will get hit with a very high APR if you do not pay it off on time. One of your alternatives is to pay a penalty of 3 to 5 to 10. I don't know how high it goes, but there's a percent penalty. You do a balance transfer. You can go to another 0% interest credit card, but then you're reliant on a different credit card company agreeing to give you a credit line that is big enough to cover the amount that's on your credit card that is about to have the 0% interest expiring. So after I got fired, I was like, oh no, I missed my chance to open up a new credit card because the ones that I have now expire, the 0% interest expires next year in like May. So I was looking at Citibank and they had an offer for me with my custom cash that I had opened up. And so it was a 5% penalty. But, well, actually, I was looking up to see, are there balance transfers that I can do that are not credit cards but personal loans? Because if I can take out credit cards at 0%, I pay that 5% penalty and I go use it to pay off the 15% APR personal loan. That was something that I was willing to explore. So Citi is one of those. Citibank, if it is offered to you, it is something that they could do, is they give you the money, the loan transfer money, directly into your bank account, and you can choose which debts to pay. So I wound up doing that. And what I did instead of paying the personal loan was I transferred, I had the money for my generator on the Lowe's card, and I used the Citibank custom cash money so that I would have an extra 4 months to pay that off 0%. And then I had like $1,300 left over, and that went actually into my brokerage account to help with the margin, because I've messed up my margin's only at 30% buffer, which is stressing me out. So then why have I gone through this whole big thing? It's because I just got my Simplicity credit card in the mail. And this has a 0% intro APR on purchases for 12 months, and then a 0% intro APR for balance transfers for 21 months. And my condo just had to have one more shot in there, and I thought that I was pretty much done paying for things with my condo, but I have $2,000 more for repairs that were done right before I sold it that I still need to pay. So I'm going to use that so that I have a year to pay that off, that I can focus on paying the ones that I have 9 months for first. Once those are paid off, then I can really focus on this $2,000 afterwards. And then for the 0% balance transfers, I have 4 options. One is, even though I opened it up with the intent to do the balance transfer, I could just not, and I won't get any penalties. If I take out this, and I can, well, first of all, the transfer fee is 3% if I do it within the first 3 months. So I could transfer it and use it for my outstanding credit card, my Chase Unlimited. That's been my go-to for all of these repairs and the $5,000 to pay my renter and all of that. So I could defer the minimum that I have to pay for that to keep the 0% for 21 months. You know, it's not free because I paid the 3%, but if I don't pay off my Freedom Unlimited credit card from Chase Bank, that also has a 30% interest. So I could do that. Or once it's set up and settled, I can see whether I can take the money and put it into my bank account. And then I can either use it to pay down the personal loan, because that's literally giving me 15% interest right now. Or I can use it to pay down my margin. So it's still like money that I owe. It's just shuffling around the debt. But it's basically, I paid 3% total for margin that is 0% for 21 months, which will help my margin buffer and hopefully keep me from getting margin called. And I could also just take it out and leave it in my checking account as a buffer. And then if there is a really big downtrend, I can put it into my brokerage account. But it doesn't make sense to still be earning the 5.55% interest on margin when I have more cash to make myself less risky. And there will still be minimum payments. The reason why I backed off from, okay, well, this has a balance transfer. I have a large balance on my Freedom Unlimited. I would like to focus on, I want to pay enough towards my custom cash and my Chase Unlimited to pay it off in the next 9 months, but also paying extra on my personal loan as we go. The only problem with adding the Simplicity credit card is that like the minimums for myself, not the minimums that the credit card company issues to me, but the minimums that I would have to pay over time to make sure that I'm steadily paying down the 0% interest so that at the end I don't wind up with 30% interest rate. Making more of those minimums means that I can pay less off for my personal loan. So what I'm pretty sure I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put the $2,000 on the Simplicity card so that I can have a year, or like 10 months to pay off the rest of what I owe for the condo. And then I am going to take out the balance transfer and put it into margin, because in 18 months, I can just take out the full amount and pay off the credit card. So and hopefully 18 months from now, my margin buffer and the size of my account will grow, that, paying back the $5,000 or so that I take out for my balance transfer, it won't be a big deal. It's just that right now, with the amount that I have borrowed with the equities and the personal loan and everything, I'm focusing more on, until May of next year, I have to pay off those credit cards and pay just a very small amount to paying off the personal loan aggressively. And then when I'm done with that and the dust is settled, I'll use the money from those 2 credit cards to just wipe out my personal loan. And then hopefully this is it. I won't have to open up many or any more 0% interest credit cards. One of the good ways to do a 0% intro period credit card is if you have a large expense and you already have your emergency fund, you can take out the 0% loan from the credit card company. You put the initial purchase, you don't have to pay a fee, you just have a 0% because of the intro APR, and then you just pay that large thing over time, which helps with your emergency fund because you've already spent the money in your emergency fund, but hopefully it's in a high yield savings account, so you're still making the 4% APR on it. And it gives you a chance, especially with us with high income ETFs, it gives us a chance to make more money, use distributions to pay it off, even if you have an emergency fund that has the amount of money. I think that's the part, that's definitely the part that I'm missing. I don't have an emergency fund, but if I had a $10,000 emergency fund, if I had a $10,000 expense, I would still put it on a credit card. I wouldn't spend the money from the emergency fund, but for me, it feels safer. And then I would just use the money that I make from my distributions and, when I had a job from my salary to pay off the credit card. But in the worst case, I could use the emergency fund, the money I already have, to pay off the credit card. So there's no danger of me actually having to pay the 30 to 25% interest rate. It's just too much. I would rather try to make a 50% yield in the stock market than have a 25% APR credit card. But anyways, thank you so much, Jetta, Omega Werewolf X, Abdullah, in my opinion, BGP Automotive, and Padriex Spalding, so much for being members. I super appreciate you. You're helping me in so many ways, and I'm so glad that we can make bad financial decisions together. Today on Financial Philharmonics, we have Time is Money. It's kind of a children's song about how there's different types of income. There's getting paid for what you do, it's getting paid for what you know, and then there's passive income. And I choose passive income because I would rather it be in perpetuity and I don't have to do anything for it. So you have to have multiple streams of income and everything. Anyways, for YieldMight, this is the website that I have made. I still have to make, okay, so now we have filters. So if you know that you want to look into crypto, you can just filter for crypto. And then you can also go into the advanced section and it'll show it as a table. And here you can see that some of these are out of date, like these twice a month ones. So I will go ahead and probably tomorrow try to update everything that is in YieldMight. And yeah, but the premise of this is if you have $100 to invest now, if I had bought that amount of shares, what would my distribution be? Because these are all at different price points. So sometimes if you can buy more shares, even with a smaller distribution, you wind up with more money because you were able to buy so many more shares. So a good example of that is like YMAX. I believe it's still like $13 at this point, less. And when you click into the details, you can click onto the title and it'll take you directly to their website. Then you can see you can change the starting amount and you can change the stock price and the dividend amount, and it'll update the additional shares and the distribution amount. And you can see here if you had put $100 in 3 months ago, what does that look like and what is your total return? And what I'm looking for here is if I put $100 in 6 months ago and I reinvested everything, so I'm steadily getting more and more shares, how much money would I have today? So I think even with the share price going down, if you put in $100 and you have $121 total, then you're doing okay. So that's an opinion. That's not financial advice. But that's just how I use this. So we have the new table to make it easier on mobile to look for things. And we have an advanced section where you can do things like I want $1,000, or I'm buying 100 shares, or we want to compare the funds. And this one, it doesn't have anything by default, but when you click on a filter, it'll show you all of them side by side. Just it's a table, just in a different way than the table view. And then you can also, well, if you're in the investment amount, you can look at it like it's a table. And then you can look, and there's my portfolio. And what my portfolio does, you can download a sample CSV and just fill out the tickers and the shares that you have. And YieldMight will auto update the distribution per share. So basically, this is not really a projection or even what we're actually expecting as our return, but it is interesting to see how much you could get weekly, monthly, or annually. And we'll see how accurate this is by the end of the month. So anyways, I feel like I've been rambling at you all long enough. Do you use credit cards? I like credit cards because they have better protections than debit cards, and I would like to go back to using them like how you're supposed to, where you only spend as much money as you have in your bank account and you pay your statement in full. Like my Gemini credit card that I'm not sponsored by any of these credit cards, by the way. It's just what I happen to have now and what has what was the best for me at the time for my needs that I had at the time. But the Gemini credit card, you make your purchase, you immediately get Bitcoin. It's just something that I would like, and I because I can't purchase Bitcoin now otherwise. There's nothing in my budget for that. So, but every statement, because that didn't have an introductory period, I pay the full amount because there's no point in getting 5% back if you're paying 30% APR. That's just not how the math works. So, anyways, which are your favorite credit cards? And I'll talk to you all later. Bye.